So, hello there. Yesterday, I went for a very interesting walk. Yes, normally when I go outside, when I go to bed, when I go to the gym, when I go for a run, whatever I'm doing, normally, as you know, I apply a fragrance. And I thought, well, why don't we do something a bit different today? Why don't we not apply a fragrance? Why would I do that? This is a fragrance channel now. Why would you not apply a fragrance? Well, I wanted to kind of go for my walk and smell what I could essentially get from outside. What smells do you detect on a walk? Because when I'm walking by, I'm obviously more concentrated on what I'm looking at, so obviously crossing roads, what I'm listening to, normally in my podcast. And sometimes your sense of smell is probably not something you particularly notice. You don't really pick up things, particularly if you do the same route every day. You just get used to certain smells in certain places. So I thought I would log my walk essentially, and just every time I smelt something different, I'd put it in a little clip and I'd talk about that. So yes, I hope you enjoy this video. Come and join me for my walk. Okay, so the first smell I'm getting, you can probably hear because there's a load going by me, but it's petrol. And it's not car fume smell I'm getting, you know, like that pure petrol when you go to a petrol station. There's a really strong smell of that, and I think it was a van that was just reversing out of this drive. I actually quite like that smell. Now, of course, in perfumery and fragrances, I don't think you're ever going to get that type of smell, but there could be a fragrance that, again, it could be divisive, not a designer type fragrance, but if there was one that replicated that sort of perfume smell, it had this, like, I don't know, lavender element added to it, just to make it a little bit sweeter, a little bit fresher, I think I'd quite like it. You know, we always talk about Dior Fahrenheit being one of those scents that does have that sort of petrol accord to it. I actually quite like it, and I do like the smell of petrol. Again, there's certain smells that you have, things like bacon and whatever, where you go, I don't really want to have that on a fragrance on my skin, but I do like the smell of petrol. So that's the first one I've smelt so far. I'll make a note if anything else comes up. Okay, next smell. It's not a favourite of mine, but you know that sort of damp grass smell? You know when like cars have been driving over, you go to like a fair or a market, and there's all these smells like damp grass? That's what I'm getting. It's not very pleasant. It's a little bit off-smelling. It's almost more of a dirt smell than anything else. Not pleasant, not one you'd want in a fragrance, but I do like green notes in fragrances. I like grassy notes. So before I was so rudely interrupted there by someone actually doing their work rather than someone just filming themselves for YouTube. I do like grassy smells in fragrances, but you've got to get it right. There's an Asian green tea fragrance by Creed, which I've spoken about recently at my brother's one. It does have that dry, grassy smell, and it's not very pleasant at all. Actually, it's horrible. I really don't like it. It's one of my least favourite fragrances. But if you get those sort of green notes that are more mentholly, they're not so grassy essentially, but you know, green notes, you can get it right, but you've got to be a bit careful with those ones. There's a fine line between what I think is a great green fragrance and one that smells a little bit dated. But yeah, certainly that dirt sort of grass smell that I just got then, it's not one I want in the spray. I'm getting a really nice smell in my midst here. Just behind me, just where I walked a second ago, there's a cafe, and it's just gone, it's about 2 o'clock, and it's the smell of, I think they're churros, you know, like that really sweet smelling thing. Sometimes if you walk in London as well, some people on the streets, they smell like those roasted peanuts. It's got that type of smell, but it's a little bit sweeter than that. It's definitely a pastry. I actually really like pastry. In fact, as I said, there's that Zara one I recently reviewed, Zara Ultra Glitch 004. It is amazing, that strawberry cream pastry smell. It smells a little bit too realistic at times, almost like food smell, but actually I can't get enough of it. Sometimes, even though I'm not saying it's necessarily a fragrance scent, sometimes it fascinates you so much that you can't stop smelling it. And walking by shops with the smell of pastry and stuff, I love. But it's interesting, isn't it? I've had 3 different smells so far. I've had grass, petrol, and like the smell of pastry, and none of them I think are really quite right for fragrances in their own right. 2 of them I really like though, and one obviously I don't like at all. But it's funny how smells can just be so different. Some that you want to wear, some that you want to eat or drink it. And yeah, just some that for some reason, like a petrol one, you like, and there's no real reason for it. But I know I'm not the only one that likes those sort of smells. Wow, so next one, a lady just walked by with a pram and a boy on a bike. She definitely had a fragrance on. Now, I didn't particularly recognise it, but it's one of those just generic sort of perfume smells that women have. Very nice, sweet, patchouli, bit of jasmine. And again, I go back to it. Sometimes when you walk past people, I actually think the ones that will stand out to me are obviously the scents that I recognise, but also the ones where people just smell clean. I think I compliment people more when they just smell clean. They just smell clean. They just smell like and I hate to be stereotypical, but they smell like a lady who's just looked after themselves, or smell like a gentleman that's deliberately made an effort to present themselves. That I'm dressed terribly, and I always put on a fragrance rather than wear nice clothes. But when you present yourself right, even in what you wear, it makes you feel better. Sometimes when I wear the same things, I get a bit sluggish. I don't know if anyone would relate to that, but she had a very nice fragrance on there, and what I detected definitely was some jasmine in there. There was definitely some jasmine, and I'm sure there was some patchouli, but it was a nice fragrance. I didn't compliment her. I should have done, shouldn't I, really? I always moan at other people not doing that to me. Okay, we've got another bad smell here. And I don't know where this is coming from because there's not a field nearby, but there's a smell of manure. Does anyone notice with manure, sometimes it smells really sweet? Almost like it's really strange to say, but like a sort of dried fruit. There's a really strong smell of manure. Now, it's not this grass, because it wouldn't be on this. But it's really pungent, really pungent. I don't hate it, it's not taking the oxygen away, but you're not going to want to wear that on a fragrance. So, yes, that's the next thing I smell, manure. I don't think that's in any fragrance notes, but we know things like civet, which are like the sweat glands from animals, can be in some fragrances. So, who knows, in the future, maybe there'll be this independent perfumer that does something that breaks the mould and adds a bit of manure in fragrances. That's a poo idea, isn't it? Literally. So I'm still walking down the side of this holiday resort, as you can see, and there's a distinctive smell of cannabis, 100%. You smell this everywhere now. It seems to be more common than the smell of just general tobacco. Cannabis has been used in fragrances. You know, I've certainly seen notes of it in, obviously, the Mugler cologne. It's one of the flankers of it, Fly Away, I believe it's called. And, you know, some people are very, very unsure about trying that one, but apparently in that fragrance it's just a very generic green citrus fragrance. I hate the smell of it. I hate the smell of it in the air. It's really strong, really pungent, and it's not pleasant. So again, it kind of goes back to it walking. Actually, most of the smells you get in daily life aren't very pleasant, I find. You know, sometimes I go for my run, and in the morning, the thing I really like first thing is the smell of fresh air. Does anyone know what I mean? Comment below if you know what I mean. Fresh air can be really nice. It's not got a smell, but there's something clean about it that I really like. And I can't put my finger on it, but you go outside at like 4 in the morning, 5 in the morning, and you smell that crisp air. There is a smell to it, but I just can't tell you what it is. It's bizarre, but it's certainly better than that, because that smell of cannabis just takes your oxygen away. So I can't believe you go on holiday and stink your whole room out with that smell. I'm sure the cleaners must hate sort of trying to clear that air for the next guests coming in. Okay, next smell, and I'm kind of in, and I come this way first thing in the morning, a smell of like cardboard boxes. It's not like tree bark smell. I'm just getting like this cardboard box sort of smell at the moment. It's funny, isn't it? What does anyone else think of the smell of cardboard? Again, it's one of those scents that you're not going to wear as a fragrance, but I don't dislike the smell of cardboard. It's not unpleasant. I'll tell you another thing as well. You know, like sometimes you go to a shop and you go to get, actually, to be honest, people don't do this anymore because obviously new stuff's online, but like paper from newspapers, I quite like that smell. And again, I don't think it's so much the scent of the actual thing, but buying a newspaper or cardboard box could be opening like presents or, you know, gifts, something in the post. Sometimes it gives you a sort of positive scent memory, essentially, doesn't it? And I wonder if that's why I don't dislike that smell. Sometimes when, you know, you get an order of fragrances in the post, you get that smell of the box when you open it. I wonder if that's why I quite like the smell of cardboard. Again, it's not something I want to wear, but it gives you maybe a positive scent memory, like we sometimes say with food. The smell of bacon, don't want to wear it, but it gives you that thing of, oh, that's my favourite food, or, you know, something like that. But that's the next one I've smelled. So, yeah, we finally found some other smells I don't dislike. I've got my sunglasses on because I thought it was sunny, and now it's raining. But the one positive, which I didn't expect to be smelling on this, is the smell of wet concrete on the floor where it's just started. And I really like that wet concrete smell, and it's something I think you could have in a fragrance. You know, we see sometimes again some Hermes fragrances that talk a lot about mineral notes, and it is that kind of, does give you that Hermes vibe. I feel like Hermes could do a fragrance like this, and maybe just add a bit of citrus to a fragrance, and it'll replicate that smell. I believe Tom Ford Noir or Oud Mineral, maybe, I can't remember which one it is off the top of my head. You do get that slight, well, from what people have said, I can't actually say I've 100% smelled them in the past, it's been a long time. You maybe do get that kind of scent from them, that smell of wet concrete. Again, it's not a seductive type smell, but it's quite comforting. I think, again, when I think of that smell of wet concrete, I think of just sort of cozying up at home then. And again, probably a little bit like the cardboard boxes. It's that scent memory. When it's raining, when it's cold, you go inside, you think, do you know what, I'm just going to watch something on TV. But it is a pleasant smell, and I know I'm not the only one that quite likes that wet concrete scent. So yeah, it's a little bit like petrol, isn't it? No real reason why you'd like it, but you just do. Speaking of which, over there, where those lights are, there's a cafe. And normally when you go by this, it's kind of like breakfast stuff. You can kind of smell, again, sometimes some meat, like roast dinner sort of smell. And the one smell I am definitely getting from there is gravy. I love the smell of gravy, I really do. But again, it's not something I like in, obviously not liking it in fragrances, but you know, I was always thinking of balsamic type notes in fragrances as well, vinegars and stuff, which I love the smell, like vinegar on a fish and chip. I love the smell of gravy on a roast dinner, but in fragrances, I don't like that sort of vinegar type note. But I do like gravy. It's a lovely smell, so it's another nice smell. This is the best thing about parks. When you get away from the cars, you do get a bit more of those pleasant type scents. And I'm about to walk past a sort of fairground thing for Christmas at the moment. When you go by at the moment, in the entrance, there's like this fire pit going at the moment. So you get that nice bonfire smell. I love the smell of bonfires as well. Those nice clean bonfires, not those really dark, smoky ones. But essentially there's a fire on there at the moment because they're sort of burning or heating up some marshmallows to cook, to try to draw people in as they come in. And there's a popcorn smell as well. And I think popcorn's a great note in fragrances. There's a Lush fragrance called Let the Good Times Roll. And it is this buttery popcorn smell. It's almost, and I say this a lot with Lush, I know, but it's almost too realistic. It's almost too gourmandy. That it's not maybe a fragrance, but it is pleasant because I just love the smell of buttery popcorn. It says it on the front, smell like, you know, buttered popcorn. And yeah, again, it gives you that vibe, that good scent memory, doesn't it? Going to the cinema, you know, you get a bit of popcorn, and again, it's maybe sitting watching a film at home. So yeah, again, happy memories, holidays, all those things. And yeah, definitely the smell of gravy. It reminds me of this time of year when you have all your roast dinners with the family. Now, I've been talking about all the nice smells that you get through parks, but there's a bit of a problem here. There's quite a lot of flowers here at the moment. I don't know if anyone else doesn't like it, but you know, like sometimes when you go, you know, you go for a park or a garden full of flowers, there's a horrible smell sometimes you get with some of those sort of blossoming plants. It almost smells like sweat. Does anyone know what I mean with that? There you go, there's that bit. In the entrance there, oh, it smells like fried cheap burgers. I actually quite like that smell. When I used to play a lot of darts, the smell of sort of cheap meat, I actually didn't mind. But yeah, the smell of that sort of pollen smell, I don't really like it when, you know, spring comes and all the flowers are blooming. It can smell a bit unpleasant, a bit sweaty. Again, does anyone know what I mean by that? Because that park definitely has that pungent smell at the moment. Okay, so yeah, just coming out of the toilet now, and you can imagine what it smells like in there. That's the worst smell so far. It smells like unclean male body parts, yes, and the stuff that comes out of it at the same time, all masked with the smell of like, and men, if you're watching this, you'll know what I mean. You know those like yellow or spongy things they put in the urinals, those things as well, trying to mask it, but you can't mask that smell. However much you try, however good your detergent cleaner is, it's not going to stop those smells. It's certainly not. Maybe you need the strongest fragrance in the world, bit of Lush Sticky Dates in there maybe would be better than those detergents, because those detergents just smell harsh chemicals to me, and you certainly wouldn't wear them as fragrances. So yeah, glad to be out of there, but this is the problem. When I drink so much water, doing 40 odd thousand steps a day, whatever, I need to go, and I need to certainly plan my routes for that reason, because I drink about 6 litres at least a day, at least. I don't need to really, do I? Okay, next smell. I'm just walking past a fence that's just been treated with like some sort of, I think it's a varnish, you know, that sort of woody smell with like new sort of a varnish on. That's really strong, really pungent. Again, not one you'd want to wear in fragrances, but I quite like that smell of like freshly cut wood. Sometimes as well, you know, like when you go past a pet shop and you get that sawdust type smell. That's what that kind of smelled like, and I think that's quite pleasant. It's certainly not woody, like fragrance woody though, is it? It's funny how when I sort of initially got into fragrances and say it's a very woody fragrance, a very resinous fragrance, I didn't really know what they meant. But actually it's so different to what you smell. When I always sort of woody fragrances, I used to think, well, I don't want to smell like a tree or anything, but over time you start to, you know, get used to certain fragrance notes and fragrance smells. And that's what I love about it. I love it when you go, I can detect exactly what that is. that you don't need to be a genius to know what the smell of vanilla is like, tobacco's like. But, you know, your average person isn't going to know what oak moss smells like or anything, you know, woody like a cedarwood or a sandalwood. Once you buy a few fragrances, you do detect it, and that's the best bit. You can then personalise scents for yourself. Actor Parma Sandalo, if you like sandalwood as a note, get that one, because you'll certainly detect exactly what it smells like then. Right, I've just walked past a sort of grill, restaurant, bar type smell, and it's got that really nice kebab smell. Again, we've spoken about meat on this talk and how much we all like it. It resembles like nice food and all those things we normally eat. But again, you don't really see meat in fragrances, of course you don't. And I have seen in a few niche brands or a few independent reviewers, they have added like raw meat or cooked meat in some of the smells of their fragrances, which is really strange. It's a strange thing to add. But, you know, walking by there, I love walking past that place. It always smells really nice, but I'm always put off by it. I never obviously show it on camera. But they've got this big rotating like meat thing, which they just slice the meat off with a knife as it sort of rotates. And that meat will just rotate on there all day, from like 3 o'clock to 11 o'clock at night. And I think that just doesn't feel fresh, you know. It just feels like it's really dated. And the meat must be getting so dry. Either way though, it does smell good, and I can see why it will tempt people in. But I don't want to wear it as a fragrance. So we're just walking past a sort of tyre garage as well. Obviously you get that real smell of rubber tyres. You'll know that smell, burning sort of tyre smell. Again, I really like it. It's not something I want to smell in a fragrance, but I do like that smell. But it's funny, you can kind of probably tell at the moment I've got mine that's mint in the mouth. And it just shows how much your sort of taste and smell and all this, obviously your base buds, they're all connected, aren't they? You know, sometimes when you laugh and you've been drinking a drink and it comes out your nose, and you're just like, oh, that blackcurrant squash just come out my nose, so I'm laughing so much. Sometimes when you're eating and sucking on a sweet, it does change the smell of everything else, you know. I'm definitely getting that buttery smell. And it's hard to know whether it's just from the taste or from my nose. And again, it just shows it's all interconnected. So sometimes, whatever you're eating could certainly affect smell. And I'm certainly noticing that with this buttermint. It's very nice, mind you. So another smell, lady just walked by me with a sort of takeaway coffee cup, and the fume strips just literally blowing in my face. I love coffee and fragrances as well, I really do. As I said, Double Espresso, the Fragrance World one from their coffee collection, is the most realistic coffee smell. But again, I've mentioned it on the review, do I always want to smell like that, or does it make me want a coffee? And it makes me want to have a coffee more than anything. There's a Costa Coffee coming by, and it's, oh, I could have one now, but I've got no money. I need to save it for fragrances, maybe some more coffee fragrances. So I'm walking just by the side of a supermarket at the minute, and the first thing you can smell when the automatic doors open is the smell of fresh bread. I love the smell of fresh bread. It's just something about it, isn't it? Very comforting. I used to, again, it's probably a scent memory is what I like it so much, because again, you're not going to want to wear it as a fragrance. Bread is actually a note in some fragrances, which I think is odd, or toast is anyway. But my friend Simon, we used to walk to town when I was in sixth form, and he always used to buy bread, but he didn't like the ends of them, so French stick for breakfast, and I used to eat the ends of it, and I absolutely loved that smell. Again, probably just that scent memory of the smell of fresh bread, and just walking carefree at the time, getting a bit of extra free food. So yeah, that is a nice smell. It made me feel hungry now. So I'm just walking through the high street at the minute, and you've got all shops like Holland & Barrett, you've got New Look, and then you've got JD, which I'm just about to walk by. And again, when the automatic doors of these shops open, you do get these smells. So JD, when you walk in, you get this kind of rubber shoe smell. You know, like when you open a box of new shoes, they smell like they've been in a factory for a while. Same with new clothing. They always have this smell of like some sort of chemical treatment to prevent them from smelling, and obviously then when you start wearing them they soon lose stuff. But you know, like new footballs, even when you go into Sports Direct, there's a Sports Direct here, they're all in like this basket, and you can just tell they're brand new. There's a smell of new. Does anyone know what I mean by that? Again, comment if you know what I mean. Whenever you get like a new t-shirt, new pair of shoes, obviously gifting season, you'll know what I mean. They have like this chemical smell. I just wonder if it's just where they've been treated, or it's the materials in general that are used in factories that just give off that scent. One thing's for sure, the shoes I'm wearing smell very much of me. Sweaty feet, it's one of my biggest problems. Definitely don't want that smell in your fragrances, do you? But I actually quite like that smell of new clothing and stuff, even if it is, again, not something you'd want to wear personally. So we're coming to the end of this walk. It's been a couple of hours, and yeah, there's been a lot of smells, hasn't there? I feel like I've just constantly been recording myself on this walk, because you don't really realise it. I think smell, obviously we're not dogs, as I was saying earlier, we're not sniffer dogs or anything like that. Our sight and probably our hearing we potentially use more when we're out walking than our sense of smell. And that's maybe why you just don't recognise things, and particularly if you walk the same way every day like I do, and you go along things like the seafront past shop, you almost just become a little bit anosmic to it. It's like wearing any fragrance, isn't it? You put it on for so long, you almost don't recognise it. You know, you don't even notice it, but other people around you do. And I think that's probably the case with this one in particular. But what are sort of main things that we take from that? Well, I think the main thing I've noticed today is there's a lot of smells you don't like while you're out walking. There's a lot of smells you do like, you know, whether you're walking past a cafe for a coffee, you know, or a cinnamon bun, that sort of pastry smell is very pleasant. But you do get that smell of obviously car pollution and other things, like I said, wet plants. I don't like that smell. Mud, they have that horrible smell to them. And you know, we've had horrible smoke smells, and we've had dog poo sort of smells, manure smells today. There's plenty of them around, so there's plenty of smells that I don't like on these. There's also, I think, a lot of it is, even if there's smells that you don't think are particularly nice smells, if you've got a positive scent memory associated to it, sometimes that actually makes you like the smell, even if it, you know deep down it's not. And obviously I haven't smelled them all today, but I love eating fish. Tin sardines, they stink. I know they stink, but I love the taste of them. So sometimes it can, you know, it can be a crossover of your senses. Sometimes they can give you that vibe, and that can be for the other reasons as well. As I said, I love the smell of bacon, and most people do. They love the smell of sausages, but you don't wear them as fragrances, so there can be a crossover of senses and smells. And you know, it doesn't necessarily mean you want to wear them particularly as a fragrance. And then the other thing I guess today is that actually sometimes there's smells that we have that we don't even really know why we like them. Why do I like the smell of wet concrete? Why do I like the smell of burning tyre, you know, a rubber tyre? Why do I like the smell of like brand new shoes if you open a new box? Cardboard, all these things, petrol, because they're not associated with positive scent memories, and they're not something I want to wear or, you know, anything like that. But for some reason I like them, and I know I'm not the only one as well. So yeah, it's very strange, but smell can be subjective. So I said, some people think their spray's not strong, some people think other people's sprays are super strong, and that's why it's always hard to review fragrances as well and give an opinion. And it's always got to be your own judgment. But this has been very interesting. It's been nice actually to come out without putting something on and having to give a review on it, and just smelling what actually you can smell in daily life. And actually a lot of them are not smells that you'd particularly have in fragrances as well. So there's certainly a crossover of smells and senses. But interesting experiment today. Tell me sort of smells that you particularly like. So are there things that you smell on your walk that you think, I don't mind that smell, or I hate that smell? And you know, you don't have any, are there any that you don't have any reason to like or hate, but you just do? Yeah, just let me know, because there's plenty of smells out there, and yeah, there's plenty of fragrances I still want to smell as well, which hopefully I'll order some soon. But thank you very much for watching today. Hope you enjoyed this one, a slightly different pace video. But yeah, it's good to get out, and I tell you what, it's made the walk go super fast. So thanks for watching. Catch you later.